What if your empathetic gift is simply a reflection of your intuitive abilities? This is exactly why I want to talk about what are the 5 subtle ways that you might be an empath and not even realize it, and no one is talking about it. Because when it comes to understanding being an empath, it is so much more than simply feeling others' emotions. And this is something we need to talk about. So if you're ready for it, let's dive in. Hey there, guys. It is Ashley from theawakenedstate.net. And we are back for another episode of Awaken and Manifest Your Best Life, the podcast experience. It is hot in summer here, and let me tell you, it's been a hot minute since I've done an episode at the podcast. But it is time for a fresh take and some new topics, and this one particular has been dear to my heart. And it's understanding that as an empath, we might be spiritually awakening, and even deeper, noticing that our empathetic abilities, our empathetic gifts that we experience are connected to our natural intuitive gifts and abilities. And there are many signs and symptoms that we can immediately spot so that we can identify what is our strongest gift, and most importantly, what we might not realize about being an empath. These are the signs to really look out for. Let's dive in. So the first one I want to talk about is knowing without really knowing. And when I say that, it's more so about understanding you just know things without being told. You just suddenly know. You have an innate ability of you anticipate people's needs. You understand that that person was hungry. You understand things in a way that most of the world doesn't, where you just pick up on the subtle vibrations, the subtle cues, those subtle intuitive nudges, and you don't even realize it. Now, to go beyond something that's even deeper than feeling someone's emotions is you just know things without really being told. You are just thinking, oh, well, it's just a lucky guess, or it's just an intuitive nudge. And at the end of the day, it's really about understanding that you are probably a mental empath. And this is coming across as, well, shoot, I just know. I don't know how I know. I just do. And you might freak out your friends. You might freak out your family because you just simply know things without much thinking. And that's the natural ability of being a mental empath. Another sign that we can often get stuck in is when we feel claustrophobic in our environment due to absorbing physical sensations and feeling drained in public places. Now, when it comes to this particular sign of being an empath, I think it can be said for all of us here that if you are an empath, you've probably felt this sensation at least once in your life, where you go to a crowded place and suddenly you feel everybody's everything, and you walk away from that particular situation, that concert, that grocery store, whatever it is, and you recognize, man, I feel so drained. I do not want to talk to anybody else for the rest of the day. I am done peopling. And it becomes this moment of being hard to manage energy, of recognizing that you felt everybody's frequency and you literally felt everybody's everything. And because of this sensation in your body, it makes you kind of tap out and kind of want like your own sacred recharging space corner to just mentally get through the rest of the day. This is often what is occurring when you notice that, man, I just suddenly have a headache and I have these physical sensations coming up. And it's like, I can't figure out where that came from, but suddenly I need to lie down and I just feel like I had too much peopling. This sensation is often happening due to being an emotional empath and getting stuck in the clairsentience energy, basically having that intuitability of clairsentience. And when we notice it come up for us, a lot of it can be about managing our energy, but also learning to hone our own frequency, coming back to our personal center. And most importantly, I think as someone who's truly suffered from this, definitely for a lot of my life, and I've learned how to overcome it. Energy management is crucial by understanding how to set up energetic boundaries when this happens. And this is one of those huge signs and symptoms that we need more energetic boundaries in our life when this is happening. Needless to say. The third one is that you hear intuitive nudges or you feel guided by sound or an inner voice. Now, this one sounds very much like a spiritual, psychic, connection. And that's simply what it is. It's recognizing that you might have clear audience going on as an empath. And this particular method of looking at being an empath is looking at when we have the sensations of a particular song that really speaks to us, or we have a particular deja vu experience where we see the same thing and we hear it over and over and over again. This sensation that is happening is because of your intuitive gift showing itself to you through sound, through frequency. So this particular sign is all about recognizing frequency and recognizing how we can utilize frequency to understand ourselves better. And when it comes to knowing this particular sign as an empath, I think it's safe to say here that this is all about channeling and recognizing that we can use music, podcast, audio, speaking, whatever method and vessel that works for you best, but recognizing if this is what is resonating with you as your strongest ability, and this comes up for you a ton, you, my friend, are definitely an audio empath. And that is something to be so proud of. The next one is you see vivid images, colors, or even visions in your dreams or in real life. Now, this is something that's actually happened to me numerous times. It's one of my strongest gifts, actually, is you see visions or you have dreams of insight, or you have these moments where you have this daydream type experience and it kind of just, you get literally taken off course and this entire intuitive download just comes to you in the form of a beautiful vision. And I've had this experience so many times. I think it was interesting how before I had a house, I kept envisioning walking on with bare feet, this vision of myself walking on wooden floor. And at the time, I lived in a crappy apartment with really crappy carpet. And it was an interesting moment because when we got a house, and we moved in, all of the carpet got redone with hardwood flooring. And it's an interesting moment because it was this vision that I had. And I know it sounds so silly and simple, but at the time I was dreaming of wanting a house and I had this vision of walking on hardwood floor. And then the house that I ended up getting was all hardwood floor. And I think that's so cool in retrospect because you can see here how it was just a vision almost from my future self that just kind of imparted onto me. And weird shit like this just happens. And I think if you have more of that clairvoyance, you have more of that visual learner brain, that this is very common the more that you exercise that part of you. You know, one of these clear key signs as an empath is, you see colors sharper, or you recognize the world in a different way, and you see visuals and visions and very almost artistic visions at that, and where you can start to see colors at a different hue. And I think this is interesting because before my awakening, I don't think this was as strong. And after my awakening, I feel like colors did take on a different hue. Things appeared more in this artistic manner, and it became more of this beautiful, spiritual download of recognizing visions. And before I even knew what it was, that's often what it would show itself as, is colors and dreams and these almost beautiful, elaborate daydreams almost. And that's a lot of the times when we have that, it's really about recognizing that that is how your intuition is speaking to you. Now, for example, this isn't just about feelings, it's also about vision. So we can see here how when we are an empath, we might not recognize that we have different abilities opening up to us due to our different senses. So, for example, the next one is recognizing that you connect more deeply with the spiritual world. And so this one is more about recognizing that it's all about that claircognizance, where it's really about recognizing that moment of connection to the other side as a sense of just knowing an inner beingness. And this recognizing is often, we tap more into that multidimensional self of who we are. And I think when it comes to understanding claircognizance, it's also really about getting clear on who you are as a person and recognizing that, not to go off script here, but recognizing that we have these abilities for a reason. And a lot of the times we don't recognize that. And so when we start to go in depth to these different layers of intuitive ability and insight, what we have to see here is they're helping show us to our strengths and recognizing what might be stronger versus weaker. And so, for example, like some people are really powerful in terms of like mediumship or stuff like that, but that's like not remotely my type of work. But when I think about it in terms of knowing that we all have different gifts and abilities, I do believe that there is something beautiful to be said here, how all of these different abilities help reconnect us back to our purpose. They help us reconnect back to who we are as a person. So, for example, I really identify with being an energy reader. And so naturally, I am drawn to working with the chakra system. I'm drawn to working with colors and working with more of that visual aspect when it comes to healing work and learning about the mind-body connection and so forth. And at the same time, here I am channeling to you because I know that this is how I mostly drop into soul. And sometimes it takes a while and sometimes it's really left field, but that's what it's really about, is recognizing what is your strength. What is your strength? And which leads me to when we're connecting to the spiritual world, this is, empaths have to realize that it's more than just about being sensitive. Like we might be very much connected to higher realms of consciousness and we're thinking like we're brushing it off as something that's like, oh, I'm just overreacting. I'm just overthinking about things, or it's just a coincidence. But the reality is if you are feeling connected to those higher realms of consciousness, that might be part of your natural gift. And also it could just be a sign that you need to strengthen your intuition. The next one that I wanted to mention is that you physically sense energy shifts. You sense when the astrology, it changes. You sense the cyclical nature of reality because you are more multidimensional and tuned into those subtle senses. Whereas someone who might not realize that we have an eclipse going on and they don't even know the signs or what to look out for, and they don't even understand anything, but they notice that their entire world shifts. And where this gets weird is recognizing that sometimes we might not even be tuned in fully to recognizing that there's an energy shift going on, but we feel it in our bodies. We know it in our soul. And we have this sensation, such as when something happens to the collective, we feel that. When something happens in, astrology, we feel that. This is all very much coming from signs of being an empath, because you're really connect in to more of that spiritual, that psychic empath ability, where if we were to just put a name on it, it's more like you're spiritually awakened empath. And just to really cap this and recognize that when we have that particular ability show up, it's often connecting us to the higher realms, of course, but also recognizing more of our spiritually awakened self, our spiritual self. And that's what it comes back to at the end of the day. So these signs are honestly more than just emotional, aren't they? They are really about recognizing the spiritual nature of who we are as an empath. And that is something to be so incredibly proud of. And when it comes to knowing this, I invite you to also look into exploring my brand new quiz, which is all about knowing your empath type and identifying what is your strongest intuitive gift. If you do not know what is your strongest intuitive gift, I highly recommend that you download and take this quiz, because it is a free quiz that you can take, and it has an in-depth guide on how you can get started today on using your gifts better. It is a beautiful work of art that I made where we can go behind the scenes of looking at what is your strongest strength when it comes to being an empath, and also your strongest intuitive gift. So the more that you understand your intuitive abilities, the easier it is to not only manage your energy, protect your energy, but also learn how to navigate in the world easier, because the more that you know your natural strengths, the easier it is to navigate in the world and come back home to your personal alignment. So if you like our videos, please hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.